Good afternoon. Time having arrived, call the special City Council meeting for the City of International Falls to order as a canvassing board, and move to the business. Item number 1 is to canvass the 2016 City General Election and declare the results. Deputy City Administrator and Election Coordinator.
Are you the election guru?
Okay, I'll take part of that, but not the whole. I can't take the credit for all of it. We have a lot of great people behind me that work very hard and long hours during our election. So, Mayor and Council, thank you. What you have before you is the 2016 general election for the City of International Falls, the mayoral race and the councilor at large race. And what we do with the canvassing is I have envelope A from our election judges from out in the polling place. The envelope A, one is our absentees, because all of the absentees now are processed over at the county auditor treasurer's office. So we spend a couple of days before that election processing those and process them all the way up till the end of the election day. So those totals are all in one envelope. So what we need to do is go through those first, jot those numbers down, and then we open the ones up from the polling place and add the two numbers together, and they should be the numbers on our abstract. So that's kind of the process that we need to take here today in verifying these numbers. Okay?
Follow your lead. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to start with the absentee for East Ward. And the absentee for East Ward under the mayor's race, Pete Kaler, 73, Bob Anderson, 103. And as you can see, actually I wrote them separately, so that's what we're verifying is the 103 and the 73. And then under at-large race for absentee in the East Ward, I have Joe Schwartz at 86, Harley Droba at 83. And then we have the absentees for Center Ward. And the mayoral race for the Center Ward, Pete Kaler, 79, Bob Anderson, 100. And the at-large, Joe Schwartz, 83, Harley Droba, 87. And then I have West Ward absentees. We have the mayoral race, Bob Anderson, 163, Pete Kaler, 113, and the at-large, Harley Droba is 120, Joe Schwartz, 136.
According to this, it's 128.
The 8 and the zeros are very close, so let me see here, 8. Yes, you are absolutely correct, it's an 8, 128. Thank you. And then we'll go to the precinct envelopes for the East Ward. So we have a mayoral race, Bob Anderson, 380, Pete Kaler, 293. And the at-large race, Joe Schwartz, 330, Harley Droba, 335. And then the Center Ward precinct. The mayoral race, Bob Anderson, 329, Pete Kaler, 268. And the at-large, Joe Schwartz, 292, Harley Droba, 298. And then the West Ward. The mayoral race is 506 for Bob Anderson, Pete Kaler, 334. And at large, Joe Schwartz, 391. Harley Droba, 436. So if you do not see any discrepancies in those numbers, what I'll need is 3 original, on the back of your pages, or the next page you see is a signature page. I have 3 originals that I'll pass around that I need you guys to complete. One of those abstracts has to go over to the county and be filed with the auditor treasurer, and then we keep 2 of the originals here on for our files.
Mr. Mayor, just a question about write-ins. You didn't say anything about write-ins. How is that handled?
Write-ins in this, if they do not ask to be counted and filed as a write-in campaign and legally registered is the word, we do not have to legally count them.
Okay.
So you can see on here, I did write in how many the write-ins off of the documents, but we legally don't have to count them. Because they're not a registered write-in campaign.
So those are the reports of the judges at the various precincts.
That is correct.
And now in declaring the results, you need the signature on 3.
Yep. I have 3 original abstracts here that I'll just give you that signature page. And I attach a copy of this cover sheet that we just worked from. And we file one with the auditor treasurer and keep the others for our records as per the rules and regulations of the elections.
So are there any questions, I guess, further questions of Betty with regard to the results? And to the process of declaring the results by signing the abstracts.
Mayor Anderson, if I may at this time, I'd like to acknowledge all of our election judges, the long hours and time that they've put in, and they did a fabulous job. So just so you're aware, we had great people behind us doing those things all day long as well.
Do you happen to know what the voter turnout percentage was for the International Falls? Statewide, we were the highest in the nation, 74%.
And I don't know our exact numbers. I was with Bob. We did the state offices and the county offices this morning for a couple hours, and I forgot to ask him exactly our numbers, and I haven't looked at our final numbers either.
It was for the state 74%?
74%.
That's what I heard.
Not the highest ever. It was 76% when Obama ran for the first time, I think.
Yeah.
The highest state in the nation.
Yeah.
Statewide.
Statewide, yeah.
Yep.
Always nice to know if we can grow a little bit about our voter turnout.
That is all I have. So,
Any further questions of Betty with regard to the election or the results? And thank you for your commendation of those who served as election judges. That they certainly we have great elections here. And yeah, any questions for Betty? Thank you.
I also want to commend Betty. I mean, she does a fabulous job in trying to prepare everything for the elections. She makes sure that we have all of our election judges lined up. She assists the county auditor with the training and works hand in glove with Bob Peterson over at the county's office in assisting with that. And I really haven't seen that level of cooperation in any of the other communities I've been in. So I think that's a credit to Betty and the other election judges as well as to Bob's office. So I wanted to recognize her for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for your good work.
Thanks, Betty. Thank you.
thank you.
Item 2 under new business, consider the process to fill the councillor elective office per sections 9 and 16 of the International Falls Home Rule Charter. I don't believe this is properly before the council at this time because there has not been a resignation, and according to Section 9 of the City Charter and the Minnesota Statute 351.02, there is no vacancy until there is an incumbent resignation. So I don't know that this is properly before us.
Mayor?
Please.
It is properly before us. I beg to differ. We can discuss the process and get it started. We know that absent even the letter, there is a vacancy that's going to occur. There's no point in delaying getting the applications. Why delay that?
Because you're manipulating the city charter, because the city charter says that when a vacancy occurs, the city council then has 60 days to fill that
To make
position.
an appointment.
Yes.
To make an appointment, that's
Yes.
a different question than starting the process to accept applications. And this was submitted as a potential application that we might use. So I'll make the motion that we open up the application process and that we use this form that we've used in the past. And that we start the application process next week. We put an ad in the paper and we ask people to submit by Thanksgiving. That's a couple weeks. Or even December 1st. Let's say December 1st, that the applications be received by then. That would be my motion.
Well, I would rule the motion out of order because we do not have a vacancy, and until we have a resignation, there is really nothing to discuss. I think we're manipulating the city charter.
That's preposterous. This is, are you denying that a vacancy isn't forthcoming? Vacancy will occur as soon as Mr. Droba, Councillor Droba submits his resignation letter, then that starts the process for making the appointment. But we can open up and let people know now that they can apply. Why delay this? I mean, don't we want a full council on board on January 1?
Whenever you can resign yet.
On January 1, you're not going to resign?
Not until I take the oath of office on,
Why are you waiting?
so that there's no lap in.
But you can send your resignation letter in effective January
And
what?
that is my intention.
Okay, can't you submit that now?
I haven't wrote it.
But can you submit it soon?
I have every intention of submitting it at
Okay.
a regular city council meeting.
At the next one?
Mayhaps, that was my intention.
Okay. So since the letter of resignation is forthcoming and is going to occur by Monday, is there why wouldn't we open up the process?
Please.
I don't have a problem understanding the process and forward. Oh, that, he's got till the end of the year. But I think for staff purposes, I would like to understand the process. I know I went through this before. I did the same thing that Harley just did. That was 18 years ago, and I don't remember the exact process we went through back then. But I'd like to have a better understanding what that process is, because from what I remember, there was just the applications, there was no interviews or anything like that. And I guess that's why I okayed this, to be able to talk about this today for staff reasons. What is the process and how are we going to go about it, and are we going to do interviews and such? And I can't support the motion you made because you made it that you want applications in by Thanksgiving.
December 1,
I would like to I understand, start the process, get the people out there. But certainly, we wouldn't do the interviews till after the first of the year. And I'd like to be able to do it so that we can get somebody on board as soon as possible in the beginning of the year.
Brian, I said December 1, I changed that. I figured.
Still, that's not much time, He's serving till the end of the year. I don't have a problem that people, we could take applications or, certainly staff is going to have time to put something together and get it out and everything else. But number one, I think we need to understand, to be just this letter, and then are we going to just decide off those letters? Or are we going to do interviews and things like that? Because I know in talking with the administrator, that they'd like to have that information so that they know.
I think people in the community want to know, because I've been getting a lot of questions about what the process is and how we're going to go about, and why you four wouldn't want to have a full council up and running on the 1st of January. I would think that's a good idea as soon as possible, but I have no feelings either way about it. This is pretty much how I thought this discussion was going to go. We're going to pull this out, but I think there needs to be a process. I would think would be a good process to have it set up before it happens. Don't necessarily have to open up the applications, but that is really up to you four, because you're the ones that are going to have to deal with it. Right. And I also understand that I'm assuming he's going to resign from the center ward, but he may not, and we don't even know where.
Are you planning on resigning from the center ward seat?
Yes. That is my intention, to resign from this seat, effective taking the oath of office for the at-large seat.
Well, if we don't start the process before the first meeting in January, we're not even going to have a set of applicants to consider, and based on the amount of lead time we need on this, from what I'm hearing, we won't have somebody seated at the center ward seat until February. So I think that it is wise and totally in order and totally forward-thinking to decide that we will open up the application process next week. This form, next Monday, this form is what we've used in the past. It works well. I don't know why we need to make it more complicated than a one-page application. And that set a deadline of what? I suggested December 1. If you want something later than that, I'd be open to amending the motion I made. There's no point in waiting until after we have a vacancy for a week to even consider this. 2 weeks.
To recite some of the facts that apply, as you pointed out, the city charter does have some language related to vacancies and how they're filled, and specifically Chapter 9 or Section 9 of the city home rule charter says that whenever a vacancy occurs in any elective or administrative office of the city, the council shall, within 60 days by resolution, appoint a qualified person to serve the unexpired term in such office. Did a little bit of research this morning, and I saw that in state statute 412.02, it references in subdivision 1, or actually subdivision 2, that the terms of elected officers shall commence on the first Monday in January following the election at which the officer is chosen. And then it says, all officers chosen and qualified as such shall hold office until their successors qualify.
Oh, so that means that are you to saying that Councillor Droba would occupy the center ward seat until we find a replacement? Isn't that what that just said?
Well, that is until their successor is qualified. Now, it also talks about resignation, and in the charter in section 16, it says that any person having entered upon the duties of his office may resign, the same with the consent of the city council, and that's just under resignation. That could be under any sort of circumstances. It could be somebody resigning mid-term for any number of reasons, as well as in this particular case, and Councilor Drobe has indicated he's going to resign from his, it sounds like, center ward position, effective upon his taking off his oath of office for the at-large position. I believe the mayor's position then is that the vacancy doesn't occur until he submits his resignation letter and effectively takes the oath of office as a at-large councilor.
But are you suggesting, therefore, because the vacancy takes place physically on the first Monday in January, that we have to wait until then to even begin the application process? Because furthermore, you just read that if that councilor at large seat is vacant, that then Councilor Droba cannot take that seat until we've replaced him.
Well, that's not necessarily true. What I'm saying is that he
continues to occupy the seat
Right.
until
he chooses to resign at some point certain, and there's another statute that talks about doing that prospectively at a particular date, and it sounds like that's what his intention is to do. I'm just reciting those because that's what we have before us in terms of the information that applies. I believe the mayor's position is the latter, is that the vacancy doesn't occur until he assumes his new position, and then the council, by the language in the charter, says we have 60 days to appoint a replacement, and that has to be done by resolution. I don't know, and I did have a conversation with the city attorney last week about this, and I included a copy of his email in your packet, and he didn't see any reason why, as a preliminary action, that the council couldn't take some steps to advertise as well. But that seems to differ with the mayor's position. I think at a minimum, what I would like to see the council decide is essentially what Councilor Briggs was talking about. We put together an application form. We modified it from it's the same form we essentially use for appointments to all of our advisory boards, although we've added some of the minimum requirements that the position requires, being 21 years of age, qualified voter in the city of International Falls, a U.S. citizen, and then maintain residence in the city for at least 30 days before appointment. And that would be the application form we would do, and we do just need a decision. Your motion is directing that the advertising process start right away, and
further, I would modify this form. Okay, I'm going to modify since nobody has seconded my motion, I will go ahead and modify my motion to include, I think we should have a line in here, do you intend to run for office once the term is expired? I think that might be interesting information to some councilors, whether or not this person intends to run again. So I would add that question. Do you intend to run for office once this term expires?
I don't think that's appropriate.
I don't think it's appropriate to put somebody on the spot personally, but
2 years ahead of.
Well, do you want, it goes to the question, do we want someone who's just going to fill in, or do we want someone who's committed to running again and being a long-term? It takes a year on a learning curve just to get up to speed on being a counselor, I think. So it would be the same question you would ask any employee, potential employee. How long do you intend on staying? I think it's totally appropriate that we ask, is there an intention of running again? But
And what do people tell you when you're at a job interview? You say, do you plan on staying here forever? Oh, you bet I plan on staying here forever. And you don't know.
right, and that's what they're going to do. They're just going to say yeah, and that's why I think it's a moot point to even put it,
And we can make motions, but obviously the mayor has decided that they're out of order. It's not following the charter, so we could stay here and keep bantering it
We have a
around.
resignation, or even a letter of resignation.
I agree.
And if he puts in a letter of resignation, we can start talking about a process.
I was just getting to the part of you are calling it out of order because of that, and there's really no sense in battling the whole motion part of it now because it's not going to happen. And if we don't want to talk about the process, I guess we can all move on and I'll go to work.
Well, there's a motion on the floor.
He called it out of order.
It's not out of order.
We don't have a resignation.
No, but we can open up the process. That is not making the appointment. It is not out of order. That is bogus.
Well, and if you read the Minnesota statutes under charter cities, Councillor Kaler's position doesn't end until the first Monday in January.
We're not appointing it when we open up the process.
I understand. When we have a letter of resignation, we can certainly discuss the process.
Why can't we discuss it now?
So we don't have a letter of resignation.
But we know there's going to be a vacancy. To state otherwise is being...
I can hear very
Okay.
well.
We know there will be a vacancy. Do not, what your position is incredulous. I can't even... We are talking about setting up advertising and adopting an application form. We are not talking about making an appointment at this point.
And the citizens in their wisdom have set up the process that upon a resignation, the council has 60 days to fill the vacancy.
I've got other things to do besides listen to preposterous situations. Goodbye.
Meeting is adjourned.